Call our meeting to order at this time. Thank you all for coming. At this time, we will have our invocation, and for our invocation tonight, I would like to call on Mr. Greg Page to come forward and offer that to us. And immediately following his invocation, we have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to say thank you to Roanoke Rapids for the opportunity to be your chaplain for the public works, for the police department, fire department, to anybody really. That's what it's all about, right? A chaplain is somebody that comes alongside, maybe gives you a cold wash rag, maybe gives you a cold Coca-Cola, or just sits there with you and listens to you talk. So that's what a chaplain is.
Help any way I can. I apologize. So with that, may we pray? God, we thank you for this time. We thank you that your word tells us love has come from God, and all the ones that loveth knoweth God, and loveth God, and he that knoweth not God knoweth not love. Lord, I pray for our community. God, I pray for love for our community. I pray for love amongst our citizens, amongst our police, amongst our fire. I pray for protection, God. I pray for our protection for our fire department as they go in and in harm's way, sometimes not knowing whether they're coming out. I thank you for our police department, Lord, that protect and serve. Lord, they do more serving than they do protecting. Sometimes they have to protect too. Lord, help them to know the difference between the two and do it as you would have them do it. Father, I pray for our mayor and the staff and Father, elected officials, that you would give them wisdom in doing the business of the town for Roanoke Rapids. I thank you for this great place to live. I thank you for this community, Lord. I just want to tell you thank you right now. I thank you for people that care, people that show up in time of need, and for this great city, Lord. So, Lord, we just thank you for everything that you do for us. We look forward to what you're going to do for us in the future. And we give all this to your name, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is the approval of the business agenda. We do have one additional item that needs to be added on. That would be item 8E, which is a budget ordinance. Someone would like to, after you have looked over your agenda, someone's ready to make a motion with that amendment to it.
I would like to make a motion that you approve the agenda with the addition of item E on number 8, consideration of budget ordinance to repair the Lake Point Drive storm drain.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Bell, a second to his motion by Councilman Steinbach. Is there any more discussion on the matter? If there is none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The agenda would be approved as it is amended. Item 4, I'd like to call on our police chief, Chief Guy Ant, to make a presentation of our new chaplain. Good afternoon, Chief.
Good afternoon to you. Hello, everyone. I'm a proud Christian, I can say that, and I don't care if anybody likes it or not, I am, okay? The people that I work with at my department, they come from different backgrounds, different cultures. Some are religious, some are atheists. It happens in life, right? When I came to the police department in July, one of the first things I noticed is we did not have a chaplain of record for the police department. And chaplaincy, for me, is very important for this job. This job is incredible that we have someone of faith there to help us during time of need. And I have had many occasions of time of need for our chaplain, and I definitely appreciate him. First, I tried to steal the one from the fire department, but Jason Yates didn't want to come to the police department. He wanted to stay with the fire department. Don't understand why, but that's okay, whatever. God brought me to Greg Page. Greg Page works at Toyota here in Roanoke Rapids. Greg is responsible for building the new building out there on Premier Boulevard. And I can just say that we met each other, ran into each other, and what a wonderful experience. And I spent some time speaking to Greg, talking to Greg, found out he'd been in chaplaincy for over 20 years in New Hanover. Spoke to the sheriff down in New Hanover County, sang his praises. My guys and gals love Greg. He's always there. He comes to early morning roll call, prays for him. He comes to late night roll call, he prays for him. He's constantly thinking about our officers, and I couldn't ask for a better human being. And God sent Greg to us, and I am glad that Greg is here for us. And chaplaincy is a very kind of dynamic position for a police department, and having someone with experience, having someone that loves this community and loves the profession that we're in, I couldn't ask for any more. So I just wanted to formally introduce Greg, if you'll come forward. Greg Page is our chaplain. I consider this one of probably the most important positions at our police department. And it is so critical that we have a great working relationship with our other departments. And the fire department's chaplain and Greg, they get along really well. And it is so nice to just have that camaraderie and to have that love of God, and to know that we've got somebody praying for us and thanking for us. But Greg spoke a little bit. I don't know if he wants to tell you a little bit about himself. He don't have to, of course, but I wanted to just introduce to the city council our chaplain, and I am so proud and so honored and so blessed to have him in my life and in the lives of our officers. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. It's just a chaplain is just somebody that comes alongside, and just a little brief summarization is I met with a gentleman about being a chaplain, and he told me that I couldn't be a chaplain. And that was a kind of a slap in the face to me, because I'm from the old school that you can do anything you put your mind to, right? And so he said, would you be able to walk up to somebody and not tell them about Jesus? And I said, no. Would you be able to do this and that? And I said, no. And he said, well, that's why you couldn't be a chaplain. And I said, well, I don't understand, because without him I wouldn't be here. He said, no, a chaplain is not that person. A chaplain is somebody that comes alongside somebody that's hurting in time of need. Now, if they ask you your opinion or ask you what your life's about, then you can tell them. But it's not somebody to try to steer you right or left in the middle of the river, because maybe your grandmama or your granddaddy has always taught you this way of religion, this way of life. A chaplain is somebody that comes alongside and helps them in a time of need, is there for them. And then when you're able to give whatever they ask you to give, then that's when you can shine your star, that kind of thing. So I had to go home and look at this in the old school days when I had WWJD, and I was like, well, what did he do? He didn't walk up to everybody and tell them they were wrong, they were crazy, and all this other stuff. He met them where they were at. So that's what a chaplain is. He meets us. We meet you wherever you're at. So I'm not just a chaplain for the police department. I'm a chaplain for anybody, and I thank Brother Jason for being a chaplain in the fire department. He's a great man of God, and we've got a lot of different pastors in this town who are great men of God as well. I'm just here to help, so if anybody needs anything, you can reach me through the police department, or you can see me at the dealership. But I'm not here to sell cars. I'm here to help people, okay? Thank you.
The first time I was had an opportunity to meet with Chaplain Page was at Oscar. Imagine that. But he didn't talk to me but like 3 minutes before he told me about Jesus, and I knew. I said, man, this guy he's really strong in his faith. But what I was just going to say is, after I talked to him, I don't remember much about what we talked about, except I remember him telling me about his faith. And I think that's what we're supposed to do if we're going to have that relationship. And I always, every time I see him, he doesn't come every day like I do, but when he comes and I talk to him, I feel better. And he lifts me up, and I appreciate what you're doing. And can you stop a phone from ringing? I would call back, but it's my wife, so I better not. Okay. Thank you, and I look forward to you being our chaplain. I'm sure you will be a busy man, and I know that the men and women that you will assist will value what you offer to them. So thank you again. We have unscheduled public comment. We have 3 individuals. Our first would be Ms. Heaton. Unscheduled public comment. If you come and just state your name and where you live, your address.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Ellen Heaton, and I am a realtor in Roanoke Rapids, actually anywhere in North Carolina. So I'm here on behalf of the rezoning request involving Church and Carter Street. It's, as you well know, currently zoned residential. We're asking for a zoning, or the owner is asking for a zoning for B3. And I don't have to tell you this, but just to make it clear to everyone that's here, that means multifamily and light commercial. It's not convenience stores or high-traffic businesses. It could be office or very light business. The area is close to other businesses, and there's similar housing going across the street on Highway 158, so it would fit in the neighborhood. I don't have to tell you that there's a housing shortage in Roanoke Rapids. It's very difficult for people that are not buying a home to find a place to live. That includes people that are already here, and it also includes people that are coming in, teachers, first responders, people with the hospital, all of those people with industry trying to find a place to rent. It's just very difficult. The other thing that I did want to mention, and I didn't want to bring up too much negative, but between 2022 and 2023, there were almost 100 calls to 911. These calls included larceny, breaking and entering, assault, shots fired, trespassing, vandalism, drug dealing, among others. With a facelift and an opportunity to give people a place to live that's close to the hospital, close to shopping, I believe it would add to the community in a positive way, and it would also add to the tax base for the city. Does anybody have any questions for me?
All right. Everybody has any questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Farabee? Mr. Farabee?
Audience, my name is Carl Farabee. I live at 304 Webb Hill Street, Roanoke Rapids. I'm here again regarding the rezoning request. The request the reason that I am here, of course, is the concern from the citizens. We heard Ellen. I know Ellen. I've known her for a long time. And the thing that came up with us, the citizens, is that there are many things that can be done with the existing zone as it now exists, and we're changing it, or want to change it to a B3 versus what's there already. If you look at on the right side of the request, it's R6. You look at the left side, it's R6, and at one point, if we came right between that would be considered spot zoning. So you gotta look at that too, and I know you guys may have looked at that to some degree, but you gotta look at that as well, and that's not really legal. But anyway, the part that the citizens have, and their concern, is that the petition Roanoke Rapids, and we're fully well aware of that, and we thank him for that. I've gone out and looked at some of his properties that he's done. He's done a good job there. The question that we do have is that we don't know if he's going to do that or keep that. And I will say this, and I hope he doesn't mind that I talked to him directly, and I asked him directly, what's your plan for that? And he said, right now, I really don't know. And I'm glad that he was candid with that. I really don't know what I'm going to do with that. The problem that we have is, if he does it, we feel he'll do a good job of doing what he said he's going to do. Make it nice and some of the. But if he sells it, then guess what? there's no guarantee that will happen. And that's all concerned. So we're saying, why not wait until he actually knows what he wants to do with it and come in and get a rezone request with a specific, because you can do specifics now, I'm understanding, versus at one point you're not able to. So a specific zone request with what he's intending to put there would make the citizens in the area feel a whole lot better. We got some on the left, some on the right, and we're coming right in between that, changing it to a B3 versus an R6 on both sides of that. Again, Council Mayor, if you would look at that, that could be considered spot zoning. But again, the concern that we have is that he probably, and I'm going to say this, in our mind won't be doing it because the signs are still up after it's sold. So that to us is saying I'm going to sell it to somebody else. I'm going to flip it. And I think what may have happened, and I'm going to go on out and say this, what may have happened is that the intent was I'm going to go in and I'm going to change it. I'm going to make it good. But after viewing the properties, it was in worse shape than maybe thought. And now they're looking at changing that or flipping that. So again, Council Mayor, we have a concern from the citizens that it not be done.
Mr. Farabee?
Thank you. Somebody else want to give me that.
Ms. Spencer? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, fellow citizens. My name is Gora Spencer, and I live at 407 Wright-Meyer Drive in Roanoke Rapids. And I just came because I wanted to ask the council. I know, you're prayerfully and you really do consider things, but just to reconsider everything that was said at the last meeting from the residents. Consider the impact that this would have on the neighborhood of a business zoning coming right in the middle of a neighborhood, splitting the neighborhood. And if you think about it, once you give that zoning, that permission for that zoning, it's much harder to go back if somebody comes in with, they don't have the right business aspects as Mr. Carroll, and they come in. It's harder for us to go back and undo and say we should not have done. So I ask you to please just take your time and consider giving this rezoning B3 so that that it won't impact our citizens.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. That's all we have signed up. Is anyone else that wanted to speak that didn't have a chance to sign up? She needs to come sign up now. Okay. Just make sure you sign this sheet before you leave.
Good evening. My name is Shawanda Bowser. I reside at 2585 Everett School Road here on behalf of my mother, Ruby Mason, that resides at 313 East Littleton Road. I am here on behalf of the members of that Hodgestown Committee. Again, simulating the same thing that has been said from the other people that has spoken before, to please consider this resident area to remain as this, as it's stated now. Yes, there is a lack of housing in the area for people. Yes, but if you bring in businesses, that means that's going to cut the housing for someone to live in the area. So why can't we take what we're going to do as a slate of business and add some additional homes there for people to live in? And that way that it wouldn't affect the property value so much on the people's home. In other words, it will make it a better place for some and, a higher bracket if they do want to sell or if they want to go. I do want to let you all know that we had a meeting, which we call the watch party, and we had several people to attend, and a lot of people just had discussion about the property. And we had a little petition that was going around where people would like for this property to remain as that number. So we collected 91 signatures, and we would like to just turn those signatures in. We don't know what those signatures can do at this point, but we just want to know that there are 90 people that stand in agreements with us that our property should remain the same. Yes, there's been, drugs in the area, might have been 911 calls, but don't that go across all kinds of the neighborhoods? It's not just in Hargestown, it's everywhere. So just don't try to pick out that one particular area. It happens everywhere. Like I said, we just want to make sure that the citizens are heard, that we're being informed before it's time to be, these things are being made. So if you all could just take it heart of what we're asking for, try not to take it away from us. Let our communities kind of stand there. Let's make it a better community by putting better houses there, just like you allowed the property next to our church. Let's bring in another community of another round of houses where people can rent. Because right now there's a lot of low-income people, and they can't afford the housing that is being rented around here. Some people are renting houses $1,500 to $2,000, and there are people who can't afford that. And so we need to find somewhere in between where people can live comfortably and that they can still maintain and still have a life. I speak on behalf of everyone, and I pray that you just find some justice and that we can continue on. Those are the end of my comments, and thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor and all the members of the council and all that are in here this evening. I bring you greetings. I'm Brenda Hardy Powell. I bring you greetings from 1923 Glover Street. Lived there from the age of 5 to 45. Still own property there. That area has been known to be a flooding zone. We've been flooded out several times, all the way up to 158. In the area, which is right to the right of First Baptist Church, going all the way down. A lot of families have been totally wiped out. So my concern, other than what Fairby and Shawanda have stated, I agree wholeheartedly with them, but I have concern about the flooding. Are you going to put in some new pipes, larger pipes, or with a new housing coming to the left of First Baptist Church and a new development coming across the road from First Baptist Church? I'm truly concerned about flooding area. It is a flooding zone, and it's hard to get flood insurance in that area. Very hard. That's my concern. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Does that conclude individuals that would like to speak on the matter? All right. Thank you all for your comments. Next item is item 6, is the approval of the City Council meeting minutes on August the 6th. We just have one meeting, and we would need a motion to approve those minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the August 6, 2024 regular City Council meetings as drafted.
Okay, Mr. Stainback has the motion. Do I hear a second to his motion?
Second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Bryant. Is there any more discussion on the matter? If there is none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Minutes would be approved as they are presented. Item 7, under old business, I call on our planning director, Ms. Anderson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and citizens. Since the public hearing was already conducted, I will not be presenting any new evidence tonight. I'll just do a quick recap of the report that was provided and answer just a few questions that came up during the last, at the public hearing. I do want council to keep in mind that to When you make a zoning map amendment, it's a legislative decision, and those are approved by a majority vote. On July 16th, City Council conducted a public hearing regarding the rezoning application, which was submitted by applicant and property owner Rentco Properties LLC for parcels of land that were located along Church and Carter Streets in the Roanoke Rapids jurisdiction. The current use of the parcels is residential and is shown on the aerial provided. The land is currently developed with single-family dwellings. The current zoning for this location is R6 residential. Excuse me. Sorry, technical difficulties.
This isn't the first time this has happened. So.
Bear with me, everybody. I'm sorry about that.
Mayor and council, I may have a comment since while we're waiting for that to kind of get cleared up. Yes, sir, Mr. Davis. And I was going to kind of say this at the end, but maybe it's better to go ahead and kind of say it now, given some of the comments that council has heard, and then also so the council can have this in their minds as they're kind of reviewing this request today. I want to kind of encourage council for their focus in considering this application all possible uses for the requested rezoning. And so to put a fine point on that, what I mean is that even in a situation, we're dealing with a rezoning, even if the business owner had come in here and said, for instance, I want this rezoning so that I can do X use, and specified that use. He said exactly how he's going to build the buildings, said exactly what tenants he's going to put in there, what materials he's going to use, what the parking lot's going to look like. Even if he gave us all those details, I would still say to council in a rezoning request the same thing I'm going to say right now, which is council has to look at all possible uses. Because once the rezoning request is granted, like I say, even if a property owner came in here and gave all that information, once the rezoning request is granted, they could just change that. They could just change their use to something else that was within the new zoning classification. So, when mayor and council, when you're considering this request, you have to look at the scope of all possible uses. And I think it's especially acute here where it seems like the business owner may not really have a sense for what his end goal is. That is, he doesn't have an intended use. And I know that a lot of times when we hear these things, folks say, well, I want to do X, and they're very specific about X. Like I say, regardless, for a rezoning request, you've got to consider all possible uses under that code. And I just wanted to kind of frame your kind of considerations for that, because I think that's where it should be in a administrative or legislative rezoning request hearing. So that's my comment. Anybody have any questions of the attorney? Okay, would you like to continue now?
I would.
Okay.
The requested rezoning is B3 commercial. Some things to consider, potential impacts would be potential uses, the neighbors, the general public, traffic, utilities, the overall neighborhood character, and schools. Things to omit from your consideration is ethnicity, religion, income, and whether the property is for rent or own. On the screen, you'll see just some street views of the subject properties along Church and Carter Streets. Surrounding the location, there's a mix of commercial and residential uses, including B4 and R3. Should the rezoning be approved, any construction and site plans submitted for the development would have to be reviewed by the following. It would be reviewed by the Planning and Development Department, the Roanoke Rapids Sanitary District, NCDOT, Public Works, Dominion Power, the Fire Department, and Code Enforcement, as in the building inspectors. On the screen, you'll see some of the permitted uses that are allowed in a B3 district. Things such as duplexes, multifamily conversions, which is multifamily housing, nursing care and intermediate care homes, family care and family child care homes, therapeutic foster homes, offices, physicians' offices, dentist offices, clinics, banks with drive-through windows, the potential for elementary and secondary schools, colleges, universities, churches, indoor athletic facilities, adult care homes, adult daycare, assisted living residences, child care center, and a police or fire EMS station. On the screen, you'll also see other locations throughout the city of Roanoke Rapids that are situated almost identical to what the applicant is requesting. So in some of these, you'll see from our zoning map, I've pulled some excerpts. And the two that are highlighted in red are also in an R6 residential zoning district that have B3 commercial right in the middle of it. So this has been approved in other locations. You can see that there. On July 11th, the Planning Board did recommend favorably for the request. Staff believes the request is reasonable, considering the nature and the size of the tract, the consistency of the zoning with the land use plan, the degree of change in the zoning. It allows uses different from the surrounding area, and its relative benefits and or detriments for the owner, the neighbors, and the surrounding community. Planning staff does recommend in favor of the request. There are two requested motions for City Council. A motion and a vote for a statement of consistency, and a motion and a vote concerning a final decision to adopt the rezoning request. Subject to your questions, this concludes my presentation. I would now, you can ask me any questions that you may have or have discussion prior to your motion.
Both of these have to be motion and approved.
You would make a motion and a vote if you choose to do so.
Okay, first one is consider a motion to adopt the statement of
Consistency.
I just want to add that the statement of consistency that is in your packet, the statement of consistency is about whether or not the request is consistent with the policies set forth in the city's comprehensive development plan, and those are listed in that statement, the ones that apply to this. So, and this does not have any bearing or weight on a final decision. So it's just about whether or not the request is consistent with our policies.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Bryant.
It was brought up about spot zoning. Can you or the attorney explain that?
Kristen, if you would go back a couple of slides, maybe one or two slides about the other, no.
This one?
Forward again, or the next one, that one here. These bullet points here are what is used to determine whether or not spot zoning exists. These are the tests in the courts, and those are also within the packet here, following guidance from North Carolina Planning and Zoning Code. So that's on page 4 of 6. as well. Those factors, the courts have established the factors to determine the reasonableness of spot zoning, and that's concerning the size and nature of the tract, the compatibility with existing plans, the impact of the zoning decision on the landowner, the immediate neighbors, and the surrounding community. And that next one fell off the page here, I think. The degree of changes from the degree of difference in the current zoning versus the proposed zoning and so forth. And since the R3 that is, the B3 that's being requested does allow residential, it'd be a higher degree of change if you went from an R6 to a B4. That would be a much more intense, or to an industrial zone. So that's using that as an example there. But that's what's used by the courts to determine whether or not spot zoning has reasonably occurred or not.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question, Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Okay.
And Kristen also indicated indoor, I think, athletic facilities. And that would include bowling alley, skating rinks, indoor tennis and squash courts, billiard and pool halls, indoor, it says again, indoor athletic and exercise facilities and similar uses, right?
Yes, ma'am. It's
So
considered
that would be
recreational.
the worst, I guess, as I reviewed the list.
Yes, ma'am.
That could be part of this zoning request.
As far as the most intense to the property, yes, ma'am.
Okay. No more questions.
Okay, at this time, for it to move forward, we need a motion on the statement of consistency. I think you find it on page 5.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve and adopt the presented statement of consistency to amend the zoning map to a commercial district for Halifax County parcels 0903077, 0903078, and 0903079 described in the staff report dated July 12, 2024.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Strickland. Do we have a second to his motion? I would call again for a second to his motion. If there is no second, and it does not move forward, would we still vote on the approval? Would there be any vote on that?
The best practice would be for council to vote on it. So a council member could make a motion to approve the request, or a council person could make a motion to deny the request, so that it goes for an up or down vote, and there goes ahead and gets to be a decision on it. So I know in your packet it says a motion to approve an amendment. If somebody was going to make a motion to deny, you could make a motion to deny the amendment. But I think that would be the appropriate next step.
But it also says no specific action. Third, if I'm looking at it correctly,
Where?
up at the top of the page, under council action.
That's if you don't vote on it tonight. So we're kind of past the first part of there at 10, and so you're kind of down in the middle of that page where it says motion, the second red motion and vote. They're kind of a little above the middle of the page. So that gives you 4 options.
Okay, if someone wants to make a motion to deny the request, we have a motion on the floor. Does he need to rescind his motion?
I think it dies for lack of a second.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at, okay. Okay, then I would declare that motion by Mr. Strickland as dying because of lack of a second. Does anyone want to make another motion to another effect? from what the city attorney is telling us, we need to vote. That's what you're telling me?
I would encourage council, I mean, it seems to me that we're here at the second time council has taken this up. I think at some point council does need to give some guidance both to the public and some resolution of this, as well as to the property owner of their request. And so I would encourage council, unless a council person wants to make a motion to defer action again, I guess in the hopes that there may be some more information or something else coming. But barring that, I would maybe suggest to council that with everything you've heard, it may be time to go ahead and move forward with it.
Okay, you've heard the city attorney, what we need to do. What's your pleasure? If we want to go against what he's saying, we need to say no specific action concerning the statement of consistency, and we just have to put it off until another time. Y'all need to help me out.
So you can take no specific action regarding the statement of consistency and move on to the second motion now.
Okay. Unless someone is ready to make a change, I would, does a council person need to state that, Mr. Davis?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, you just kind of get to the second motion and you know, again, if there's no recommendation, I guess what happens is that, you know, we can readdress it at a later meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I would move to the final decision. You have the information there for someone to make a motion, or however we want to move forward with that.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve an amendment to the Roanoke Rapids zoning map to change the zoning classification of properties located on Church and Carter Streets, identified as Halifax County parcels 0903077, 0903078, 0903079 to B3, commercial district described in the staff report dated July 12th, 2024.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Strickland. Do we hear a second to his motion? I would ask once again, do we hear a second to the motion? Okay, Mr. Attorney, if the motion dies for lack of a second again, where do we go from here?
I mean, that's up to council. If council wants to defer action on this to the next meeting, council can. If there's no motion, I don't think that, I think at some point the council either needs to approve the request or deny the request. I don't think that it can kind of stay out here in limbo forever. It doesn't seem like there's any kind of consensus on either one here right now, so, I mean,
is it appropriate to ask the city planner or the city attorney or city manager if it's possible? They used to have a term called a variance, and they had a special use permit and those type things. And now I think we have what they call conditional use. Is that something that the applicant would, it seems like right now the issue we're having is lack of information on what may come. And if somebody was to try to exercise that conditional use, would that require the applicant to be more forthcoming and more tied to what he or she, the applicant, was going to do with the property? So maybe we could arrive at a decision on a vote?
it would depend on if it is one where Yes, sort of, depending on what that use is, and then they would have to go through a very different procedure from what we're doing now. It would be quasi-judicial, so there would be testimony, and it would be a different process if their intended use, when they got to that point, qualified. That's probably not giving a very good answer. It's a very different process, but yes, you would probably know more about their use through that process if they could take advantage of it.
Yeah, conditional zoning districts are allowed now under the general statutes and under our zoning ordinance. And what that means is that someone has an intended use for a property, but the current zoning district does not allow it. And this has worked very well in multiple places, which hence is why it's legal now. When an applicant can come in and say, this is what I intend to do with the property, and you can actually bind them to that site-specific plan for development. And it doesn't work in all cases, and it's all based upon what the property owner desires to do with the property. So, for example, on this particular site, if they knew that they wanted to do something that was permissible in the B3 district, and they wanted to make sure that that particular site plan was approved with it, then it would stand alone basically as its own zoning district. We did one of these for self-storage facility that is not quite yet under construction on West Becker Drive, so that is an option, but conditional zoning is an option too. And conditional zoning, which is the process that we're in right now, I mean, not conditional, but traditional or conventional zoning, excuse me. You have to consider all of the uses, all the potential uses. We cannot say, well, we'll approve this, but you have to do this on this piece of property. Can't do that under the conventional zoning process. So,
But is it not so that if you use the conditional use and you state your intent for what you're going to do with the property, that one is you would be required to do what you said you were going to do? Is that correct?
Yes.
And then the other thing that I think is probably more important from what we're hearing is that that could not be changed even if the ownership was changed, that particular type of business.
Well, and again, we're not in that approval process right now. In the conditional district process of approval and presentation, if the applicant wanted to make any significant changes, then it would have to come back before the board just as it did in the initial approval. So any substantial changes would have to...
Yeah, and I think we understand that. I just don't want anybody to leave here tonight and think that we just sat up here like mutes and didn't do anything. So if there is another possibility, I hope they would be able to explore that, and then both sides would be able to realize at least part of what they're trying to accomplish out of this. So.
Right, and that is an option, but I think right now on the table what we need to consider is the business at hand, but the other options exist, but I don't really see where a variance would apply. A variance is typically a very unique situation that would prohibit use of the property without, or by, if they had to comply with the zoning code. And use variances are not allowed.
I didn't even think they were still in existence, but I was looking for the conditional use term.
Well, it's conditional district zoning. We used to call them conditional use permits, and especially, but the terminology is conditional districts. But again, that only works in certain specific situations where an applicant has a firm intent of how they plan to use the property.
Okay, so both motions have died for lack of a second. Time to move on.
You can, unless there's any other motions as far as denying the request.
Is there any other motion that anybody wants to bring, any council person wants to bring to the floor? Okay, if there is none, I would move on to new business. Consideration of budget ordinance for the fire department. Call on fire chief.
Mayor, council, citizens,
I'm here tonight to discuss some equipment that we've been trying to get on the fire truck. As we all know, we ordered 2 fire trucks back in 2022. And through this process, one of them was purchased on a grant, and the other one was through ARPA. Well, one of these trucks would be fully equipped, which you guys approved some money for upfit last year. But since then, we've been constantly applying for grants to try to get the equipment for the second truck. And I'm happy to be here tonight to tell you that we've been awarded 2 grants recently that's going to help us tremendously with purchasing this equipment for this second truck. I'm happy to report tonight too that the first truck that we ordered is in service now. Went in service earlier this week. We are still lacking the ladders for it, but what we did was take the ladders off the older truck, that's a reserve truck at this point, and put them on the new truck. So the new truck is in service as of last Tuesday. So the first grant we applied for and have been applying for the last year is the Firehouse Subs grant. Most of you may have eaten there before. It's a sub place, kind of like Subway, and they offer grants for first responders. This is a very competitive grant. We've been applying for many years for it, and we were fortunate enough to receive that grant this year. So that grant was for $37,290 to purchase the battery-operated extrication tools that we had discussed months back. So tonight I'm here to ask you to consider a motion to adopt the budget ordinance 2024 for the amount of $37,290 for the Firehouse Subs grant. Now, this grant does not have a match, so we will get all of that funding towards the purchase of all that equipment.
Okay, anybody have any questions of the fire chief? If not, we need a motion to approve his request.
I'd like to make a motion to consider a motion to adopt budget ordinance number 2024.19 in the amount of $37,290 for the Firehouse Subs Public Safety.
Okay, motion by Councilman Bell, second to the motion.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Bryant. Is there any more discussion on the matter? If there's none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion will be approved.
All right, the second grant that we're speaking of tonight, we're all very familiar with this. This is the AFG grant, which is the grant that we were able to fund the one of these fire trucks that we purchased on. This grant is for $69,038. This funding for this truck or for this grant will be used to purchase new hose and nozzles and things like that for this second truck. As you recall earlier, I spoke of the first truck was the only truck that we actually ordered new equipment for. So the second truck will have, now that we've received this grant, we won't have to take the older equipment off and put it on this one as far as the hoses and nozzles and things like that. So this funding will be used to purchase that for the second truck. However, this grant does have a match. It's a 5% match, but it's still a pretty good deal for us. It's only going to cost us about $3,200 and some dollars. I asked you tonight to consider the motion for the budget ordinance for $69,038.
Okay, do we hear such a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt budget ordinance number 2024.20 in the amount of $69,038 for the AFG FEMA Go grant.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Bryant. Do you hear a second to a motion?
Second.
Second by Councilman Bell. Any more discussion on the matter? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion will be approved.
And I thank you all, and if I could say one more thing, my staff works very hard, as all of the city staff does, looking for grants and trying to keep the cost as low as we can for our citizens. And I'd just like to thank my staff publicly for all that they do in gathering this information and getting this to our grant writers, and even applying for some of these grants ourselves, the ECU North grant, and we just applied for another one a couple of weeks ago. Those are done in-house, but I just want to thank my staff for the hard work that they do, continuing to do that. Now, we've been very blessed in the last few years for this, but there's been many years that we don't get it. We can't depend on these. We don't always get them, but we do know that if we don't apply, we won't get the opportunity at them. So thank you all again.
Okay, thank you. Chief Guyant.
I come to you with item 8C. 8C is new business consideration for budget amendment for police department disposition of order of special investigative funds. On July 2nd, 2024, District Court Judge Turner Stevenson found disposition in a case that we had from 2021 involving some undercover operations we had at some sweepstakes businesses here in the city. As part of that, we had $1,003 worth of undercover funds that had been used in those cases. Judge Stevenson ordered that those funds be issued back to the special investigative fund that we have at the police department. So I come to you with ordinance 2024-21 is to abide by what Judge Stevenson has asked, that $1,003 be placed back into the Special Investigations Fund for the Police Department.
Does anyone have any questions of Chief Guyant? If not, we need a motion to approve.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt budget ordinance number 2024.21 in the amount of $1,003 for the Police Department Disposition Order Special Investigations Fund.
All right, the motion is by Councilman Stainback. Do you hear a second to his motion?
Second.
Councilman Strickland. Any more discussion on the matter? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion will be approved.
I also come to you with item 8D. 8D is new business consideration of an amendment to codify an ordinance, chapter 131.07, called panhandling, aggressive panhandling in prohibited areas and times. Complaints about individuals walking up to vehicles begging for money have increased within the past few years. The city needs to have some ability to curb and hopefully eliminate this type of quality of life issue in Roanoke Rapids. The Roanoke Rapids Police Department requests that the City Council consider adopting a new city ordinance related to panhandling, 131.07, to curb the amount of panhandling in the city. Information obtained in order to create this ordinance before you came from adopted ordinances from both the City of Rocky Mount and the City of Goldsboro. We use those as guides to draft this ordinance. To ensure that this issue has some enforcement capability, the ordinance request needs to be considered and approved. The ordinance allows for legitimate commerce requests by requesting permits, but it eliminates the nuisance and aggravations caused to citizens and visitors through instances of begging. So the ordinance prepared for you is in alignment with General Statute 168-179, and the ordinance is 2024-22. If I could go into just a little bit of detail about the ordinance. So the term panhandling is begging, or can be used interchangeably, the purpose of which to obtain contribution of money. There's also a definition of aggressive panhandling, which is continuing to solicit near an individual addressed after a person has been directed and made negative responses to do this, to remove themselves from that area. Also, any physical contact with another person without consent, or by blocking the path of a person being solicited, or blocking the entrance of a building or a vehicle, and by using abusive language, words, gestures, and other acts intended to cause a reasonable person to be fearful of the solicitor. This is the termination for aggressive panhandling. The definition of public place is a place open to the public. Pretty much we kind of have a really common sense understanding what a public place is. The rules and regulations requires that it's unlawful for any person to panhandle or beg as defined by this particular ordinance within the city limits of Roanoke Rapids without first obtaining a panhandler's permit from the chief of police or their designee. Such permit is only valid for 1 year. It shall be unlawful for any person to panhandle or beg from any of these following places: within 100 feet of a financial institution or an ATM machine, within 20 feet of any bus stop, train station, or taxi stand, within 20 feet of any commercial establishment which is open for business, within 20 feet of any outdoor dining area during operation, within DOT or city right-of-ways excluding any sidewalks, and after sunset or before sunrise. To no avail, that's 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. So no panhandling before or after those particular times. Accordance with, like I said earlier, General Statute 168-179, it shall be unlawful for any person to aggressively panhandle. Again, panhandling, aggressively panhandling, two different things. One involves a little bit more fear and intimidation. Moving on down to opportunities to stop the prohibited activity. This is General Statute 14-4, which is a criminal law statute. It pretty much gives us the authority to use criminal statutes to enforce a city ordinance. And you're very familiar with that in our discussions from previous months when we made a lot of codifications to the ordinance about things that were going on in the city. Pretty much what it says that our first goal is to stop the behavior. And as many attempts as we can have to legitimately stop the behavior from happening, that is what our intents are. However, if the behavior continues on, we have the ability to write a uniform state citation, which gets the matter into court. The first conviction of subject charge could be $50 fine or imprisonment up to 7 days. A second conviction shall be a maximum fine of $500 or an imprisonment for not to exceed 20 days or both. If a complaint is registered with the police department by a private citizen, the complainant formally identifies the person accused of aggressive panhandling and begging activities. We will not use the diffusion, if you will, of trying to talk the person out of doing that, because we're actually receiving a complaint. Hey, this guy came to my window, begged me for money, and I want you to do something about it. Now, this person would have to be a witness and go to court, those kind of particular things, but that's how that's there. I do want to draw your attention also to something that I want to be clear about, and that is dealing with exceptions, okay? Exceptions, which is letter D. The conduct prohibited does not include solicitations made by authorized representatives of not-for-profit corporations, organizations, or group in order to obtain funds designated principally to further the purpose of such nonprofit organization or groups, provided proper identification, signs, vests, badges, and the like. If you can think of, you remember a time when firemen were out collecting, they have fire boots, and they walk up to people's cars and people donate money, fire boots, for whatever nonprofit cause that they're doing, okay? That would not be applicable in this particular charge because it is considered an exception. Now, again, somebody can petition the chief of police to get a permit that lasts for a year to do some kind of activity, and then there is the exception. But other than that, everything else falls within those parameters that I talked about, the 20 feet away from certain things, 100 feet away, DOT right-of-ways, and then sunset and sunrise. The purpose of this ordinance is only to address the tons of complaints that our office has received, and I'm sure you have received from your constituents as well. We have currently, at this moment, nothing in our tool bag to prevent this from happening, okay? General Statute 14-4 exists, allows us to handle this in a criminal capacity. I did run this by the city attorney. He's very familiar with it. City manager is also very familiar with it. And you've probably had a few minutes to read this and understand the nexus and the genesis behind this and why it does exist like it is. So I've offered up for any questions that you may have.
I have one or two things that I can add, Mayor, if I may. the first thing I want to be kind of clear on and kind of make sure that council understands and the public understands with respect to this is, right now, without this panhandling ordinance, if law enforcement receives a complaint and says that an individual on such and such a street is out aggressively soliciting money from me, I mean, that would essentially be just like somebody picking up the phone and calling law enforcement and said somebody's out in this same place wearing a green shirt, and I don't like green shirts. Well, of course, that's not illegal. And at this point, you know, without this kind of regulation, law enforcement is essentially in the same situation as if somebody called and complained that somebody was wearing a green shirt. And that they can't go out and make that contact and have a reason to have that kind of interaction with them. And the other thing that I wanted to emphasize and I want to be clear on, and I know that sometimes in these contexts, you know, law enforcement or a government agency will say, well, we want to encourage compliance, and sometimes I feel like there's kind of a cynical reaction to that. Well, really, you just want to arrest more people. Well, that's not the case with this, and I can point out why that's not the case with this. And you know, I've kind of gotten the sense that there may be some kind of public concern about whether it's the morality of you know, essentially a situation where someone may get arrested when they're really down on their luck. But if you look at NCGS 14-4, and that's what enables the city to pass this ordinance if council is inclined to put it in place, is when an individual is cited with this, under that statute, it specifically says that if they take steps to address the situations that put them in the situation where they were charged with the ordinance violation, or if they go 30 days and show that they don't have any more violations, that they can't be prosecuted for it. And so that was one of the things that Chief Cayenne and I kind of spoke about as he was in the process of preparing this. And you know, this is something that was completely initiated by the police department in light of the many complaints that they've gotten. But in our discussions with this, that was one of the things that I kind of emphasized, is that, you know, I can envision a scenario where even if what we don't want to happen happens after this is passed, that is somebody is out there aggressively panhandling, the police department receives a complaint, they go out and address it, and they're forced to arrest the person. If then, while that case is, you know, obviously that case is not going to get handled in court that day normally. A lot of times it's not going to get handled in court that month. But if the case goes on for 30 days, and there's no new violations, or if they can show that they've taken steps to address whatever issues it was, and I think in some situations that we've had in the past, there have been mental health situations that have been involved. So I want to be clear that in those situations, when somebody is kind of finds himself caught up in this scenario, there are off-ramps out there that are contemplated not only in the ordinance but also in the statute itself that enables us to pass the ordinance. And so that's something that will be kind of a process for, again, encouraging compliance and encouraging these issues to get handled. There's no scenario where a city could just absolutely say no panhandling at all. That's not legal. That goes against First Amendment rights as far as speech, assembly, you know, all those different things that we hear in civics class in high school. But this does establish legal, what are called time, place, and manner restrictions. That is, the restrictions of not doing it after not doing it at night, after dark, not doing it within certain distances of financial things that go more directly to making sure that the public feels safe in going out, while still also creating a scenario where if somebody does want to engage in panhandling activity, giving them some guidance as far as how they can do it legally within some confines. So maybe that's more than really needed to be said about it, but I just wanted to be clear that this is not like a lot of your other criminal statutes. I mean, or ordinances, when we put something out there that says, breaking and entering is illegal, well, that's because none of us want folks breaking into our houses, to our businesses. And if somebody does that, that has got to be handled. This is a different situation where the purpose of this is to regulate it, to encourage people to do right, and if they're going to engage in panhandling, and then also, too, if they do get caught up in this system, to give them some structure where if they address it and they move into compliance with it, then we can resolve that potentially without any jail time towards them or any kind of fine being put in place if they'll comply with it. So I just say that as some context.
And just real quickly, just to add on to that, again, it is not the intent that we're looking to lock anybody up or anything. Sheriff Davis will make sure that we don't want to put anybody else in his jail, right? It's already full enough. We have historical evidence of people panhandling in this city that we have our own pockets have helped these people get back home, get to where they need to be. We have done that. We just want to curb the behavior. We have to curb the behavior the best way we can, and we have zero tools in our tool bag to do such. And we definitely understand the mental health options of it. Most of us are CIT trained, and we understand that, and we do try to find as much mitigation as we can for these people in these situations. But we have to curb the behavior, and we've got to make sure we have a tool in our tool bag to do such, and that's why we brought this forward.
Okay, thank you for doing that work to get that very important item to where you have. Thank you. And we need a motion. We need a motion.
I had a question for the chief, if I could. Could you give an example, chief, of where a permit would be necessary to do that, how long you go about getting one, and what that would cost? Are you saying a volunteer first responders like volunteer fire department would need a permit to do that? Is that what you were?
Now, there is an exception to the folks that are out there doing I think it's worded specifically under exceptions, conduct prohibited does not include solicitations made by authorized representatives for not-for-profit corporation, organizations, or groups. Again, this is churches, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, departments like the fire department, things like that, certain people, they would be exempt. They don't need a permit for that. No. A permit would be someone wants to panhandle, wants to beg for money, and it's not a not-for-profit group, they can apply for a permit. They have that option to do that. So it gives them the option to legally apply for that permit and to ask for that. I can't think of an example. I'm sorry, I can't. But it's in there for the purposes of if someone wanted to have a legal way to do this, then this is the option that they would have.
Is there a fee involved?
There should not be.
No, there is no fee.
No, and if council votes on this, I think it would be something where, especially as it kind of rolls into effect, that the police department would let folks know when they come into contact with this that, hey, this is the right way to go about this now. I think there would be an education kind of aspect to it, and I hate to put words in the police chief's mouth, but
So it's another mitigation strategy for us to say, hey, you can do this, but you need to do this the right way.
Okay, we still gotta have a motion.
Mayor, I would like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2024.22, amending the Roanoke Rapids Code of Ordinances.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Stainback. Do I hear a second to his motion? Second by Councilwoman Bryant. Is there any more discussion on the matter? If there is none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion will be approved. Thank you, Chief. Mr. Chalker?
And I do want to add to, while he's getting set up, is that, as you all are aware, I was out of town on vacation last week and returned yesterday to learn about this dangerous situation that exists in the right-of-way, and so there hasn't been much information leading up to it. It's been really, but I was afraid that if we didn't add it to the agenda tonight, then we would end up possibly having to call a special meeting.
While I came up and helped Kristen, so now she's up helping me, I'll go ahead and get started for time constraints. I come to you tonight for a consideration of a budget ordinance for a damaged storm drain system at Lake Point Drive, which is in our satellite annexation out in the Greenbrier neighborhood. On Saturday, August the 10th, our staff responded to a call, along with me, to Lake Point Drive, which is in the Greenbrier satellite annexation off Bowling Road. We discovered a 15 to 20 foot deep cavern alongside and just under the edge of our portion of Lake Point Drive there. There is also a large tree that has washed down in this very large pipe that comes from the Smoot and Minor Streets pipe system and large drainage ditch. This large tree will also have to be removed when repairs are underway. We immediately deployed barricades, traffic cones, and caution tape to warn the public of this dangerous sinkhole. And the resident that called us on that Saturday was actually concerned that maybe some children might try to get in this very, very deep hole. And so we contacted our vendor, Reitmeyer Machine Rentals, who gave us a really quick estimate of $65,000 for the repair. And if you look in what we've given for you to review, that estimate is attached. And I don't think we're going to get these photos up on this screen, so I'm just going to move on without those. We'll be glad to share those with you. So our action requested is to consider a motion to adopt budget ordinance number 2024.23 in the amount of $65,000 to repair the storm drain at Lake Point Drive. And also, just for supplementary information, we just went through this on Challoner Drive. We were allotted $45,000 by the council to fix that. We came in at the final number at $38,700, so we were a little bit under budget on that, which is typically the norm, but we just like to go a little further to make sure we're not over budget. Also, in addition to that, approaching this system just out of the city limits, there's a DOT system in that subdivision that drops into our system, and it is damaged as well, so DOT is going to take up their part of that burden just outside of the city limits. So we'll be doing both of these things together in conjunction with DOT, if you award us this budget amendment. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Okay, if no one has any questions, we need a motion to approve this.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt budget ordinance number 2024.23 in the amount of $65,000 to repair the storm drain at Lake Point Drive.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Brown and a second by Mr. Bell. Is there any more discussion on this matter? If there is none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion be approved. Thank you, Mr. Chalker. Public Works. Ms. Trainum, your report.
I don't know if that's mine or not. I just touched it and it made that noise, but anyway. Good evening again, Mayor and Council. You do have your departmental monthly reports in your packets since it is that time for the month of July. So I won't go over those too much, but just want to point out the highlights that our departments do a lot, especially in, year-round, 24/7. But the month of July, at the beginning, we didn't think there was much grass to cut because everything was dead, and then all of a sudden, you can't stop grass from growing between cracks and everywhere else. And to be honest, it's overwhelming, and it's been hot, and so the safety of our employees comes first, and so there may be some projects or things that may look like it still needs to be cut or something done, but we assure you that there hasn't been any oversight. It's just more or less managing our staff to make sure they're safe in the heat and in the conditions as well. because the workload is so great. The outside of Kirkwood Adams, you'll notice that there is a new sign being installed. The installation is underway. It will have an electronic message board, and so right now we're working to get the power to that sign and be able to announce events and things like that in the future here soon. And speaking of that, the Public Works staff have been really diligently working to improve the internet access at all of our facilities. Since fiber internet has become available, most of our facilities have been using some sort of internet access that's been bounced off from City Hall and so forth, and so the efficiencies and the speed and reliability are greatly increasing through that work with Public Works' assistance with the contractor for that. We have officially and almost finally kicked off some of the implementations of the NeoGov and then the OpenGov programs to improve the efficiencies within the organization. As we said, these have been funded and budgeted and approved by the City Council, and I feel like we've been talking about these for years now, but we are in the stages of creating these new online databases and going through these meetings and so forth, but we intend to go live by the end of the current fiscal year. Next week, our independent auditor intends to be on site, plan to be at City Hall in the conference room for at least maybe 2 to 3 days, working with that. And then on Monday as well, the kids will go back to school, and want to thank the Public Works Department for the crosswalk marking improvements and so forth. The District 2 vacancy is being advertised as requested and directed by the City Council. The applications are due to the City Clerk, Tracy Story, by Thursday, August 29th, for inclusion in the September 3rd City Council agenda packets. Just as a note, Labor Day is coming up very soon. Monday, September the 2nd, city offices will be closed in observance of the holiday. And then we'll meet on September the 3rd and September the 17th next month. I've provided you a little list of some upcoming events as well. And then the first one on here is the SEDS Strategy Development Group Workshop. And if you're interested in it, if y'all want to either register on your own or I can register for you, but there's a meeting next week on Tuesday from 11 to 2 in Rocky Mount at Nash Community College. And these SEDS, that stands for the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, these are multi-counties, but they do these about every 5 to 7 years, the updates. And so representatives from all the counties for Edgecombe, Halifax, Nash, Northampton, and Wilson will be present. And Hillary Sherman from the state's EDA will be there to talk about funding opportunities and so forth. So if you have any interest, you can either click on the link that I emailed to you, or let me know, and I can sign you up for it if you have any interest in attending that on Tuesday. And just a couple other things to highlight as well. Hope for Hardy's Twilight Festival is Friday, September the 20th, and staff are working with the host for this as far as their plans and for this community special event. And then the following day, on Saturday, September 21st, the Recreation Department will host the Roanoke Canal 5K, and they're currently accepting registrations for anyone who wants to participate in the race. You don't have to run, you can walk. And so, and then some other activities as well, and then including while it's a little bit further away, the Battle of the Badges on October the 1st, the blood drive, and then the Roanoke Valley Aging Expo. Save the date for that, which is Thursday, October the 3rd at Kirkwood. Subject to your questions, that concludes my report for the evening.
Have any questions, City Manager? All right, thank you for your report. Finance Director for Finance Report.
I was going to skip right over, Kelly. I'm ready to go. Okay, so for July, we had a year-to-date receipts of $135,000, which is normal for July. Our large amounts normally come in September. So year-to-date expenditures was 1.7, and that's normal, because we pay our general liability insurance, our workers' comp insurance, we paid our quarterly theater payment, and, so that's normal. The revenue that we did receive were our commercial solid waste, interest revenue, which is still doing very well, grant and donation funds, and just other general revenues. I wanted to tell council that we did get our final June sales and use tax payment, and it was $439,000. So that's gonna put us $200,000 over what we budgeted. So, I just want to let you know, I'll do a final June financial report once we finish all our journal entries and, get with the auditor. I'll do a final June so you can see how the whole year turned out.
Did you say sales tax? That what it was, okay. All right. That concludes your report?
Yes.
Okay, anybody have any questions of Ms. Johnson? If not, we thank you for your report. Any other business that needs to come before the council tonight?
Mr. Mayor, just briefly.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to give a brief update on the litigation. Just let council hear it from me that we are diligently working through our response to the complaint. Well, I don't want to tie our hands with respect to any kind of hard timeline and give you a hard date. I think we're on track to have some kind of formal response filed by the end of September, barring any unforeseen circumstances. I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again. The plaintiff in that case, and I'm speaking specifically about the litigation filed by former Chief Martin, Bobby Martin. The plaintiff in that case has had over a year and some change to formulate his allegations in the complaint, and it's not going to take us anywhere near that long to respond to them. So I'll just say that. I'll also say too, we have been, one of the things that prompted this is, of course, we've been in touch with our insurance company, as I think most folks on council know, and probably, I don't know if members of the public know it, but the city changed its insurance carrier at the beginning of, it would have begun last fiscal year, the fiscal year that just ended, so July of '23. Their response to this has been incredible. I've been really impressed with them. I know that I was among the advocates for making that change. It's no reflection on our old insurance company, but the new insurance company is specifically the League of Municipalities. They are local. They deal just with North Carolina municipalities. In fact, I sent Kelly, the city manager, a text this morning saying how happy I was with their response. So we've been working through that with them, and of course that's, and in fact, I said what prompted it. They gave us the final notification, the formal notification that we had coverage for this claim today. Now, they didn't start on it today. They've been working with us on it since we got notice that it was being filed. But that's a process, and there's a formal kind of evaluation of coverage that comes, and we received that today, and they confirmed that we are going to be covered for this. And of course, when I say coverage, that's no reflection on the validity or the merit of any claims in the lawsuit. That's just saying that they're going to be helping us through the response to this. And so I just wanted to kind of update council so that council and the public knew that we're addressing it, and that it takes time, but we're going to be diligent and we're going to be thorough about it, and there's going to be a response coming shortly. So.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Anything else before we call for a motion to adjourn? Okay, someone like to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Mayor.
Motion by Mr. Stainback, second by Mr. Bell. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We're adjourned. Thank you.